Question 20. Joints' general features. A joint or articulation is formed where two or more bones meet one another, and the function is main determining factor for the structure of the joint. You have little or no movement for fibrous joint or cartilaginous joint, a wider range of movement, and you have a synovial joint. Firstly, the fibrous joints. The surface of bones are connected by fibrous tissue. You have three kinds of fibrous tissue or fibrous joints. You have a suture. The meat, you find it in the skull. It joins plain bones. And you have three kinds of sutures. You have a serrate suture. That is like a saw-like process. You have a squamous suture with overlapped edges, and you have a plain suture, simple apposition. Next type of fibrous joint is the gymphosis. It is like a peg and socket, like the teeth into alveolus. It's a conical process into a socket. Last type of fibrous joints are syndesmosis, where articulating surfaces are connected by interosseous ligaments, like between the arms of the forearm, bones of forearm. Now for cartilaginous joints. First we had fibrous joints, now we have cartilaginous joints, where opposed bony surfaces are connected by cartilage. This is epiphyseal plate in long bone. Here we have intervertebral disc. In synchondrosis there is hyaline cartilage and no movement is permitted, and it is temporary in character and replaced by bone. Example in the skull. Second type of cartilaginous joint is symphysis by fibrocartilage, and it allows limited degree of movement, for example intervertebral disc and pubic symphysis. This would be fibrocartilage, a symphysis cartilaginous joint. And now for the synovial joints. We had fibrous joint, we have cartilaginous joints, now we have synovial joints. And these are for a wider range of movement. You have characteristic features of a synovial joint. You have articular cartilage, here in blue. You have articular capsule in pink. You have joint cavity in gray, with synovial fluid or synovia. Then you could also have capsular ligaments. And movement is always possible. In addition, you could have articular discs or menisci and accessory ligaments. The articular cartilage is hyaline or fibrocartilage, mostly hyaline. There are no vessels or nerves in the articular cartilages, so it gets its nutrition from the synovia and underlying bone. The articular capsule is a fibrous membrane and synovial membrane. So the fibrous membrane in pink is connective tissue attached in the periphery of articular surfaces, and it's perforated by vessels and nerves. And the synovial membrane in purple, it lines the fibrous capsule and covers all the structures in articular cavity except cartilages, discs and menisci. It sends projections containing fat, articular fat pads, which fills the spaces in the joint cavity. The synovial fluid is a viscid glary fluid. It nourishes articular cartilages and acts as a lubricant, which diminishes the friction between the bones and the cartilages. Now the additional structures like articular disc and meniscus help balance and correct differences between the articular surfaces and helps bones to move. And usually is a plate of fibrocartilage. You have oval disc and you have meniscus, semilunar meniscus. And on the periphery it is attached to the articular capsule. Accessory ligaments prevent excessive or abnormal movement. You have intra-articular and extra-articular. Intra-articular is also called intracapsular, so you would also have extracapsular or extra-articular. Now for classification of synovial joints, you have quite a lot of them. Either according to a number of articulating surfaces, you have simple joint or compound joint. You could also classify synovial joints according to the shape of joint surfaces and movement that is permitted. You have uniaxial, polyaxial, and biaxial. For uniaxial joints, you have a hinge joint, where you could get flexion and extension, and a pivot joint, where you could get rotation, supination and pronation. Then you have biaxial joint, like the biaxial joints permit movement around two distinct axes. So you have ellipsoid joint, you could get flexion and extension, abduction and adduction. Then you have the saddle joint, where you can get flexion, extension, adduction, abduction. Then you have bicondylar joint, which I don't have on picture. Articular surface is divided into two convex condyles, articulates with two distinct concave surfaces. Example, knee joint. Then you will get flexion, extension and rotation. Then we have polyaxial joints that allow all types of movements: flexion, extension, abduction, adduction and rotation. So we have ball and socket joint and plane joint.